Hello everyone and welcome back to the Biology and Health Bloom Institute summer course. So in unexpected announcement, you will be having a final project and at the end of this class, you will receive more info about that. So our class 7 is about the human nervous system. So what is it made up of? The peripheral nervous system, the PNS, which has cranial nerves from the brain, spinal nerves from the spinal cord, and highly specialized sense organs, and the central nervous system, which goes and carries from the spinal cord to the brain. So please copy this image down because this is very important, especially for human anatomy. And how does it all work? So let's use the example of a stranger grabbing your hand forcefully. Your body registered the unwanted sudden touch stimuli, and the CNS sends a nerve impulse to the muscles in your hand. Your muscles, having received the messages from the CNS, will react accordingly by jerking your hand away or any other relevant response. In this case, your muscles are the effectors. So first, something is recepted, then it goes to the CNS, and then it has an effect from your nerves, from the motors, right? So here is your vocabulary. So stimuli is a thing or event that provokes a reaction out of your organ or tissue. An effector is a bodily tissue, structure, or organ that becomes active in response to stimulation, and effectors can only be muscles or glands. Receptors is an organ in your cell or in your body that is able to respond to external stimulants. And nerve impulses is a signal that travels along a nerve fiber in response to a stimulus that acts as a messenger from the receptor to the effector. So now remember the CNS things. So if you've memorized this and finished writing this down, then we can move on. So here are the parts of the nervous system. Neurons are nerve cells that make up nervous tissues which make up the nervous system. So there are different types of neurons. Sensory neurons, relay neurons, and motor neurons. So sensory neurons are connected to the receptors in the skin. The relay neuron is the middle, like the thing in the middle of the whole thing, and it's crossing the effect to the product of the response. And the motor neuron controls the muscle, and it controls your reaction to the information that you get that was relayed from the sensory neuron to the relay neuron. So here's the different neurons. Sensory neurons, also known as the receptor neuron, can transmit nerve impulses from the sense organs or receptors to the CNS. Relay neurons, another name for this, is the intermediate neuron, and it can transmit nerve impulses from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. Relay neurons are found in the CNS and act as a messenger. And as you know that the CNS consists of the spinal cord and the brain. And then the motor neurons, otherwise known as effector neurons, transmit nerve impulses from the CNS to the effectors. So motor neurons are basically making your body move, right? Like this. So despite having different sizes and shapes in certain parts, each neuron consists of a cell body containing a nucleus and cytoplasm like all cells, and a number of nerve fibers. Nerve fibers are strands of cytoplasm extending from the cell body. So you can take 2 minutes to write notes. So quick question, which of the following is the correct path for nerve impulses? Yes, the answer is 2. First, something is recepted or received by your body. Then it goes to the CNS, and then the CNS will send impulses or messages, like it will code it for your motor neurons to basically decode the message and get it. And then the effector is your motor neurons and all, and they will make a reaction to whatever your body has recepted that went through the CNS and went to the effector, right? So the answer is 2. So here's the structure of a sensory neuron, the neuron that's feeling things, right? So there's a terminal nerve fiber, a long nerve fiber, a cell body, which is really like form, right? It's in the like circular form. Please make sure that the cell body is in a circular form. There's a dendrite, axon terminal. There's a nucleus, which all cells have, and a myelin sheath. And then here's the structure of a motor neuron. As you can see, the cell body is in an irregular shape, right? Here, the cell body is in a circular shape. Here, it's really irregular. It's really messy, right? So here's explanation of the part. So how do neurons connect to each other? Through synapses. The space between two neurons is called a synapse. Nerve impulses cannot directly cross from one neuron to another due to the gap between them. So they are transmitted through a synapse by chemicals released in the neurons. So you can see these are the synapses, right? And then let's talk about the brain, spinal cord, and spinal nerves. So the brain is protected by the skull. The spinal cord runs down the back of your body from the brain, and the spinal cord passes through the backbone which protects it. So spinal nerves emerge at intervals along the length of the spinal cord. So like the nerves are on the spinal cord, right? And as the spinal nerve leaves the spinal cord, it progressively subdivides into branches, supplying nerve fibers to various parts of the body. And note, spinal nerves connect the spinal cord to various parts of the body and are composed of bundles of nerve fibers like all nerves. So they're connecting the spinal cord to different parts and they have all these nerve fibers, right? So yeah, it's like all of the nerves. So what does this mean, right? So see all of the thin lines that branch out from the spinal cord? You see all of those? They are the spinal nerves. There are about 31 segments of them, each having their own pair of spinal nerves. And each nerve has their own unique function, ranging from breathing to heart rate to bodily movements and activity. So please write that down. Okay, so now they work together. So as you can see, the receptor takes the input, sends it to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is the interneuron, right? The middle thing that's like passing on the information, and then it sends it to the motor neuron, which is the effector. And yeah, it's giving the output in the blue, you can see, right? So it's input, then something goes on, and then it sends it to an output, kind of like a function in math, right? You have functions where you get one input, then a equation happens, and then you get an output. Similarly here, you have an input, then you get a message and impulses, just like an equation, and then you get an output. So everything is a function. Yeah. So then how does the nervous system process information, right? So through sensation, voluntary action, and reflex action. Do you guys know any of these? Think in your mind. Think in your mind with your neurons, guys. So sensation is when you hold a block of ice, you can feel its coldness. This is because the temperature receptors in your skin are stimulated, and in response, nerve impulses are produced and transmitted to the brain. The brain interprets the nerve impulses and you get the sensation of coldness. So the pathway is something like this. So the receptor in the skin, then the sensory neuron, then the relay neuron, and then the brain. So you feel the coldness, then the temperature receptors in your skin are stimulated. They're like, oh, I feel this coldness. And then the nerve impulses are produced. So as soon as they feel the coldness, they're like, oh, we need to produce these impulses and transmit it to the brain and through the relay neurons. And then the brain interprets these, and then you get the sensation of coldness in your brain and from your fingers, right? So it's really cool how nerves are sending information to each other through the CNS, and that's really wild fact, right? And then voluntary action is deliberate action, meaning it's done by you consciously. So for example, you decide to raise your hand in a class and answer a question. Nerve impulses aren't produced externally, right? They're produced in the brain. So it's not like you're touching a cube of ice where the cube of ice is cold and then it goes to your brain. This is actually starting from your brain. Your brain is the starting point, right? So your brain is transmitted by relay neuron. The information from your brains, the impulses, is transmitted by relay neurons down through the spinal cord. And then nerve impulses in the spinal cord are transmitted to the motor neuron, which transmits nerve impulses to the effector muscles of your arm. Then the muscles contract and your hand is raised. So the idea starts in your brain, right? And then it goes through your spinal cord, then to your motor neuron near your hands, and then the effector, which actually raises the hand. Like the effect is the raising of your hand through the muscles, right? And there's new muscle cells as well that is involved in this. So it's really cool how neurons can work backwards. So starting from the brain and outward to the body, or from outward receiving something, and then using the receptors to translate that information to your brain and alert you. So this is something really cool, sensation and voluntary action. And then let's see what is reflex action. So a reflex action is an immediate response to a specific stimulus without conscious control. They are rapid and automatic, and the simplest form of response in humans can even occur without any conscious effort. So you can do this unconsciously. So it is not possible to prevent them consciously. In other words, reflex actions are involuntary, the opposite of voluntary, right? You know what voluntary is, right? Like, I'm volunteering to work at the library. It means that I want to do this and I choose to do this. But reflex actions are involuntary, meaning that you did not sign up for this. Like, I am not signing up for this job. My body is doing it by itself. So reflex actions can be classified into cranial reflexes controlled by the brain but controlled by the brain but not the conscious will, and usually occurring in the head region, such as salivation, blinking, pupil reflex, etc. And then spinal reflexes controlled by the spinal cord include pulling away your hand after touching a super hot object, knee jerk reflexes, etc. Like, if you touch something super hot, it's not like, oh, I think this is very hot, I'm going to move my hand away from it, right? Maybe that's the case with cold objects, but hot objects, your body has evolved in such a way that as soon as you touch something hot, it's not possible to avoid this action because of the body's natural reflex to something hot, right? And it's controlled by the spinal cord. So make sure you don't damage your spinal cord or anything, because your spinal cord is one of the most important parts of your body that controls all of these reflex actions. So if you damage your spinal cord or something like that, you probably won't be able to even move your hand away quickly from touching something hot because you don't have these reflex actions. So that's a fun fact, right? And then here's a sequence in a reflex action, and we'll talk about what I said later. So we'll use the example of touching a hot plate to explain. So heat from the hot plate will stimulate the receptors in your skin, and nerve impulses are produced. Like, it's a signal, right? Like, a signal goes out, like, oh, this is pretty hot, this is a bad signal. And then sensory neurons transmit the nerve impulses to your spinal cord, right? Like, literally the spinal cord. And the nerve impulses are transmitted through that signal, first across a synapse. And remember, what is a synapse, guys? Synapse is the space that neurons use to connect with each other, right? With chemicals released by the neurons. So basically, chemicals are releasing to transmit information through the impulses through the synapse. Right? Wait. Through the synapse, through the relay neurons. And then another synapse, again, translating information over long distances to the motor neuron. And then the motor neuron transmits the nerve impulses again from the spinal cord to the effector. And then your muscles contract and cause your hand to withdraw suddenly. So again, it seems complicated and long, but in reality, all of these things take a very short amount of time for it to happen, right? Like if you touch a hot plate, see how fast your hand is going to move. I'm not recommending you to do this at home, by the way. Like, if it happens by accident, okay, but like, if it ever happens by accident, you know how fast your hand is going to move, because all of these impulses are created in very short amount of time, and these neurons work very fast, right? Neurons are smart cells, right? And then if sensory neurons are cut, it will result in the loss of feeling in that area. And if motor neurons are cut, it will result in the inability to move. This is some crazy information, right? So this is why neurons are a very important part of your body and really important cells, right? Here we can see sensory and motor neurons. So if this is cut, we can't feel. And if this is cut, then we can't move. Imagine not being able to move. That's the importance of these small, tiny cells in your body. It's not like they're anything big or anything. These small, tiny cells are controlling every movement and every feeling that you get in your body. So, and here's a reflex arc. So a reflex arc is the shortest pathway the nerve impulse can travel from the receptor to the effector in a reflex action. The path usually goes like this. receptor, sensory neuron, relay neuron, the spinal cord and brain, and then motor neuron and effector. So as you can see here, and this reflex arc, why do you think it's the shortest pathway? This is because reflex actions require short pathways to function, right? It's not like your brain is going to take your brain is not going to take the long route when it can take a shortcut when when your hand touches something hot and it knows already that it's going to be harmful to you. So it'll find the quickest way to take you out of that harmful situation. Like it's like holding your ear like this versus holding your ear like this, you know? Like it takes the shortcut, and that's why it protects you, and basically you won't get burned because of these reflex actions that happen in literally seconds, right? And then stretch break. If you guys want background music, let me put it on now. So yeah. Okay guys, we are done with our banana timer, and welcome back. So we have a Blookit, but the link this time is not attached to the slideshow. It will be given alongside the slideshow. So wherever you got this, the Blookit will be given on the link next to this video, right? So please do the Blookit, and if you have the Blookit on the link next to this, then you don't need a teacher to be with you, and you can also you can also do the Blookit without a teacher because it's an asynchronous game. And yeah, like there's no teacher required inside the game room. So here's your announcement. So for your final project, you guys will have to write a paragraph, essay, or article and go crazy with it. Use graphics if you want. Just make sure everything is within A4 size paper. And on two of the topics we have taught connect with each other. So topics we have covered and will be covering, each bullet point is one topic. So plants, animals, natural selection, evolution, ATP, cellular respiration, photosynthesis, inheritance and variation in humans, the human nervous system, ecosystems and ecology, illnesses and diseases. So you have to get two topics and connect them with each other and tell us how they connect, right? So take the time between now and class 9, which is the due date, to think about what you want to do and get started on it. Make sure everything is in A4 size or either scanned into a PDF document if you've done it on paper, or download everything into a PDF file from whichever software you used. And no rush, because class 9 is still 2 classes away and you'll still be learning more in class 8 and 9. So we'll link a Google Drive where you can place your final submissions in on Friday before class. So yeah, and make sure it is in by Friday 4 p.m. PST. This is an old thing, so you could just do it by class 9 so that we can look it through, right? So good luck. And also, while there is no requirement for font size and font designs, make sure that the overall design of your project is readable so we can give you a fair grade. And I'm not sure if you guys are going to be having your class 9 on Friday or any other day, but just try to get it in by class 9, okay? Like if it's on a Friday, then that's pretty good. Try to submit it by 4 p.m. PST by the folder. And here is the folder for your final project. So do well, make some quality work, and put your educational standpoint into this. Thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed this class, and I hope you enjoyed learning about neurons, axons, effectors, and all this, and how you process information about and all the voluntary and reflex actions. So if you have any questions, you can go back in the slideshow. You can read the slides if you didn't understand anything I said or something that I mentioned. And thanks so much for attending the class and learning about the nervous system. See you in class 8. Bye.